She liked to dance on Instagram, a wannabe influencer following all the latest trends. But then this Florida woman posted things on social media with dogs that no one should ever see. I'm Anjanette Levy, and this is Crime Fix. Before we get into this really disturbing case, I want to tell you about an app that I've been using that I really like. It's called Upside, and it will get you cash back on things that you buy all of the time, like gas, groceries, and carryout. Here's what you do. You download Upside for free. You claim an offer at one of their 100,000 plus locations and pay like normal with your card, and then you verify the purchase and you get money back. You'll see it right away. So say I need gas or I want takeout one night. I'll search for Upside offers first. After I spend the money appears in my app that I can transfer straight into my bank account. Upside's frequent users earn an average of $254 back a year. You cannot beat that. So to start getting your cash back, click the link in the description or scan that QR code that you see on your screen and use the promo code CRIMEFIX to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. Logan Gaminsky, she spent a lot of time on Instagram. She danced and she even shared photos and videos of her dogs. This is Princeton.
June back.
Logan Gaminsky also liked to pose on Instagram in bikinis. Nothing wrong with that. That's legal. But there were things that Logan Gaminsky did with her dogs on Instagram that were beyond disgusting and totally illegal. And now she's going away for a long time to prison. I first told you about Logan Gaminsky back in March of 2025. Gaminsky's case takes us to Marion County, Florida, north of Orlando and south of Gainesville. In January of 2025, deputies there said they got a tip about Gaminsky posting videos of her dogs on Instagram, and in the videos, deputies say Gaminsky was coercing one of the dogs to do things that were sexual. Detectives said one video was 32 seconds long and very concerning. The dog was a brown and white Chihuahua, but the face of the woman in the video couldn't be seen. However, the incident report stated the video also shows a possible belly button piercing on the white female, which in several photographs on the defendant's Instagram page, you can see her with a navel piercing. Of course, detectives looked at other videos on the Instagram account to see, is this Logan Gaminsky? Detectives say they found other videos that showed Gaminsky with dogs and that some, quote, depict her with a small brown dog, possibly a Chihuahua, that is identical to the one in the video. This dog is small and light brown with large brown ears, a white line going down the middle of its head, a white belly, and white fur that extends halfway up the dog's legs. I confirmed that the dog in the video has all these same characteristics. I also located a photograph posted on April 5th, 2024 that depicts the defendant with the same dog that is wearing the same dark colored collar that is depicted in the video. Now, as part of the investigation, the detectives called the person who sent the video to them. The detective wrote in the arrest report, I made phone contact with the person who submitted this tip, who requested to remain anonymous. They stated that on January 27th, 2025, they observed the aforementioned video posted on the defendant's public Instagram page, Alex Gum X. They advised the post has already been deleted. However, they were able to save the video before it was deleted, and that is what they submitted the anonymous tip. They advised they observed the defendant's Instagram page and observed photographs of the defendant with the same nails and the same dog as in the video. They described observing a post on January 27th, 2025 of the defendant's ex-boyfriend screenshotting the aforementioned video on his Instagram, tagging the defendant in it, and calling the defendant disgusting. This post has also been deleted. However, they were able to screenshot the post and included that in the tip. In March 2025, detectives went to talk with Logan Gaminsky. One detective wrote, on 3/21/2025, Detective A. LaRoque and I conducted an interview with the defendant, Logan Gaminsky. The defendant admitted that she is a content creator, which she described as her utilizing the Fansly platform to sell photographs and videos of herself in the nude, depicting different sexual acts to users on the internet. The defendant admitted to taking the video of her engaging in a sexual act with her dog Princeton, which she described as a brown and white Chihuahua. She advised that this was at the request of a Snapchat user, Sire, who requested she make the video and send it to him. The defendant, in return for engaging in this sexual act and recording it, was paid $500 by Sire. The defendant advised that she also made a second video containing sexual acts with a different dog, Rosie, which she described as a yellow lab. The defendant advised that the videos were still located on her cellular device, which she described as an Apple iPhone 15 Pro Max. The defendant advised the videos were transmitted over Snapchat, and she added her Snapchat username was Logan Nicole 77. Gminski was arrested and taken to jail. Logan Gminski was booked into the Marion County Jail on charges of filming or possessing images or video of animal sexual activity and unlawful sexual contact or activity with an animal. She pleaded not guilty to those charges and was released on bail. Now, I know you're wondering, what happened to the dogs? Did they let her keep the dogs? I'm going to get to that here in just a second. Gminski actually owned 3 dogs, Princeton, Bam Bam, and Juniper. Gminski's case was set to go to trial, but then days ago, she changed her plea and pleaded guilty to 2 felony counts, filming or possessing images or video of animal sexual activity, and then 1 count of unlawful sexual contact or activity with an animal. The judge sentenced Logan Gminski to up to 36 months in prison. That's 3 years. She was booked back into the Marion County Jail. Back when Logan Gminski was first charged, she agreed to give up her dogs, Princeton, Bam Bam, and Juniper, to her mom. Gminski said she wouldn't take care of dogs at all or have contact with dogs. The court agreed to that, and of course, the prosecutors did too. So I'd like to bring in Dr. Daniel Bober. He is a forensic psychiatrist, and he's also based in Florida. Dr. Bober, thank you so much for coming back on to talk about this case. I know you and I have discussed this case before. Logan Gminski has pleaded guilty to the charges. They had her dead to rights on this. They had videos. They had her admission here. What are your thoughts about her getting up to 36 months in prison and then 24 months of probation after that?
Well, listen, Anjanette, it's obviously a very bizarre and disturbing case. I guess my question would be, is this someone who really has a true paraphilic disorder? Is this someone who has an atypical sexual arousal pattern where there's sort of, this buildup, this tolerance and novelty seeking, and then eventually a boundary crossing? We see this a lot in behavioral addictions where there's this reinforcement loop where, we have the novelty and the release of dopamine, the taboo and the increasing arousal, and then finally this repetitive conditioning that occurs? Or is it something much more simple? Is it purely transactional? Is it just really about money? But we know that when people go online, they're very often disinhibited. There's this sort of feeling of anonymity. Well, no one's going to really know that it's me, which obviously in this case didn't happen. There's this almost dissociation where they become disconnected from their thoughts and emotions. And maybe they do things that they wouldn't do in front of an audience of people, because in the online community, the audience is essentially invisible, right? We don't know how many people are watching at any given time. And that in and of itself can be highly reinforcing, whether we're talking about money or tokens or likes. So I think people are much more likely to do things and cross the line online than they would be if they were sitting in front of a group of people. And then, of course, this might just be someone who has narcissistic and antisocial traits. And obviously, I've never examined her before. But in similar cases, we see people who have an inflated sense of self-worth and who violate the rights of others and who lack remorse and who lack empathy and are more apt to do things like this. So it's really difficult to know what's going on from this one snapshot. And, she may very well have a history of developmental trauma where she was exposed to highly sexualized content at a young age and had boundary crossings when she was younger. It's very difficult to know. But in cases or patients that I've treated, these tend to be some of the similar histories that I've seen.
She's an influencer, or I would call her really a wannabe influencer, because she wanted to make money off of being online, and she probably does have some narcissistic stuff going on. She's posing, with bikinis on online, or at least she was. And so, there has to be a certain level, some boldness there to go with that. But what she has now admitted to doing is pretty, it's like beyond the pale disgusting. They were saying that, she was coercing the dog to do these things. And she admitted to doing it. And she said, well, she got paid like money by this guy, Sire, to do it. But it kind of raises the question to me, because it sounds like she posted this on Instagram. Maybe that was a mistake. Maybe she didn't mean to do it and somebody screenshotted it. How many other times did she possibly do this and do it for money and not get caught? And that to me is like the open question here. I would assume the cops would have looked at that, but maybe not if they didn't have the evidence of it, because it sounds like somebody saw this, screenshotted it, and then reported it to the police.
And the fact that there is an audience of people out there who get sexual gratification from this highly disturbing content, that also is very concerning to me as well.
It's very concerning. She had 3 dogs, and the dogs were taken away from her, thank God. It sounds like her mother took the dogs, and she was told by the court, back when this first happened, there was a hearing, and she was not to have any contact with dogs at all, not allowed to own any dogs. As part of her sentencing, she was told, no dogs, you can't have animals, and that's a good thing. That kind of makes me wonder if they believe that this wasn't just a one-time thing, if this is the way she was indeed making money on this other site, this Fansly or whatever, that she was filming content with the dogs and possibly making money that way, and not just posting things on Instagram and this Fansly site doing whatever, would be legal. Because she had 3 dogs, and she was posting photos and videos of herself with the dogs. So I don't know. What are you thinking? I mean, you're the psychiatrist here. Do you think that this wasn't just a one-time thing?
The most pressing question for me is, if I was sitting down and talking to her, would be, is this something that you were doing purely for money because you knew there was an audience out there for this? Or is this something that you yourself get gratification from? Obviously there's all sorts of pornographic sites where people will act out certain fantasies for people, and they do it, and it's purely transactional. They do it for money. They come off camera and they try to lead or compartmentalize what seems like a normal life, but they don't themselves get gratification from it. So that's really what I would want to know from her. Is it something that she finds personally gratifying, or does she do it purely for money? That would be something that I would want to know.
But the thing to me is, it's like doing this purely for money. It's not like you're just like posing online purely for money. What they described in this affidavit is this woman coercing a dog to do things to her below the waist. It's so ick. It's beyond ick. I know you're a dog owner. I'm a dog owner. There are certain things, I guess, that people will do for money, but we're talking about encouraging, and they're saying coercing a dog to do certain things to you for money. That just goes to a whole nother level.
Oh, I agree. Listen, it reminds me, of some of these organized crime figures that I've met, that could kill entire families full of people, but then they go home and they have a meal with their own family and act like nothing happened. So there's a certain disconnect there. There's a certain cognitive dissonance, if you will, between someone who could do this and say it's purely for money, but there are people that are able to compartmentalize these types of behaviors and then go on and live their lives, whatever pathological defense mechanisms they have to do to go through with these types of things. It's very different for different people. But that, for me, is the biggest question. And obviously, the acts themselves are disturbing, and you would think that someone would be able to draw the line, kind of like, I'll do something for money, but I would never do this. But for her, there didn't seem to be any boundaries. There didn't seem to be any end point where she would stop and not cross any line for her own financial gain.
Mm-hmm. So she's getting up to 36 months in prison, and it says state prison on the sentencing documents. So she's going to go, she's going to prison. This is no joke. She's not going to the county jail. And in her jail mugshot, though, she looks pretty stunned. Like, I can't believe this is happening.
Right.
Oh, it's happening. It's happening for sure. And then she's going to be on 24 months probation after that. So probation's no joke either. You have to check in with the probation officer. You have to stay out of trouble. And then you have to not go back to what you were doing. So, that's 5 years. You're 3 years confinement if she does the entire 36 months, and then 2 years checking in on probation. Plus, she's going to be a convicted felon for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
So how obviously you haven't examined her, but how successful is she going to be? Because this is somebody who obviously wanted to be an influencer, was all over Instagram and this Fansly trying to make money doing that. It doesn't seem like she was making any money because she was indigent and got a public defender. So she must not have had much money doing anything, making much money doing any of this. So is she going to be possibly successful coming out of this in completing probation and all of that? Maybe she doesn't do this, but she's going to have to find a job. That's usually part of probation.
Yeah, I think she's going to have a difficult time. I was thinking about how she's going to fare in prison the same way that child molesters are in prison and the other inmates find out about their crimes. How are other people in prison going to react to her? And then, maybe she was doing this because there wasn't really much else she could do for whatever reasons, take it learning disability, lack of education, for whatever reason, this is the way she was earning her income. How is she going to get out of prison and then try to find a regular job with all this hanging over her, the stigma of it, the humiliation, the shame? I think she's going to have a difficult time.
How do other prisoners in a women's prison view people who would take their pet dog, their Chihuahua, and then maybe their other small dogs, and coerce them to do sexual things online for money? How are people like that viewed in a women's prison?
Well, I think, if you think about the reason that prisoners attack other prisoners who've committed crimes against children, I think the belief is, you don't touch a kid. There's certain lines you don't cross because they're purely innocent. And in the same way, animals are purely innocent creatures, right? You come home from work, you had a horrible day, they come up to you, all they want is love and connection and affection. And to exploit them, to harm them, to shame them and humiliate them for your own gratification or your own financial gain, it's hard for me to think of worse things than that.
Interesting. So you think once she gets into the women's prison, some of these women who are in there for doing whatever they're doing, or whatever they have done and they've been convicted of doing, are going to look at her and be like, "You're sick."
Listen, I know how I feel about my own dog, right? If my own dog was about to be hit by a car, I would jump in front of the car to protect my dog. So there are some pretty loyal, affectionate, dedicated dog owners out there that I think are going to be very, very put off by this.
You brought up a point earlier, Dr. Bober. You kind of wondering whether she really has a paraphilia here or whether she was just doing this for money. But really, if you're just willing to do this for money, what is described in the affidavit, and I haven't even gone into it, I just described it as coercing the dog to do something below the waist because that's what was described in the affidavit. I haven't gotten into the gory details of it, and I won't. But if you're just doing it for money, my God, I find it hard to believe there's not something wrong with you, even if you don't quote unquote have the paraphilia going on here, because that's just disgusting.
Well,
Like
that
what
well
she,
that goes into what I said about the antisocial traits, right? Not feeling empathy, not feeling remorse, willing to lie, to cheat, to steal, to manipulate, to do anything you have to do to get ahead, to make money. That gets into sort of the antisocial traits that may be at work here with someone who does this sort of thing and is able to do it.
well, just think about how much easier of a time she would have had if she had maybe just tried to go make an honest living. Not that maybe doing Instagram stuff isn't an honest living, but if you're not making enough money to survive on that, maybe you should go find another job doing something else. Because I think that's probably a tough way to go about it.
Absolutely.
It's gross. Well, I think that you're right. She may have a tough time in prison, but maybe she'll learn her lesson and get out and find a job where she can make money, not abusing dogs.
Well,
It's
for whatever
disgusting.
she does, she definitely needs a therapy and mental health counseling to try to dig a little bit deeper into what's going on here and find out what her motivations are to engage in this type of behavior and more about her background and her history that could have led to this to occur.
No doubt. Dr. Daniel Bober, as always, thank you for your time and your expertise. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Anjanette.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, Logan Gaminsky will spend 36 months in prison, or at least up to 36 months in prison. And after she is released, she'll spend 24 months on probation. As part of her sentence, she is not allowed to own or possess any animals. And when she's on probation, she can't live with or have a job or work at any place where there are animals. Thank goodness. And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Anjanette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.